Example 2 is very similar to example 1 in that you've got an equation where you have to combine your like terms. So I'm going to move the 4 over, add 4 to both sides, subtract cos x to both sides, and divide to get cos x by itself. Difference in question number 2 is this is not on your unit circle. So you're going to need to find a reference angle. Okay, since the angle is x, you'd write your reference angle with an x. And your reference angle is always found by doing cos inverse of positive 2/3, because the reference angle is based on an actual triangle if we drew it out. And we need to go to our calculator. Cos inverse of 2/3. And be able to start to recognize by your answer, do you know that your calculator is in radians or degrees? If I get 0.841, does that seem like a number that's in radians or degrees? In radians. Is this question in radians? Yes. Whew. So we've got our reference angle, 0.841 approximately. So our angles for x, well, since cos is negative, it will be in quadrants 2 and 3. I'm going to go to my calculator and store this reference angle as x so that I can quickly calculate pi plus x in quadrant 3 and pi minus x in quadrant 2. 2.301. So approximation signs to 3 decimal places, 2.301. Oh, it says to the nearest hundredth. So 2.30 and 3.98. And you're going to find that you do this very often. What did I just find here? I just found the solution in the first positive time around, because 90% of the questions you do ask you to solve it between 0 and 2 pi. Or you just get used to solving it the first time around because that's what you did all of grade 11, was go the first time around. But when we look at our actual domain in this case, it went from negative pi over 2 to 3 pi over 2. So what is that looking for? That's looking for positive angles in quadrants 1, 2, and 3, and negative angles if they're in quadrant 4. Oh, this one's in quadrant 2 and positive. That one's okay. This one's in quadrant 3 and positive. That one's okay. Did we have any answers in quadrant 4? No. So even though they messed up the domain on us, we were fine. We didn't have to change anything. Sometimes you'll have to go and X out one of yours and put something coterminal with it. Like if you got the answer in quadrant 4, you know, 6.28 minus this, you got something like 5.4, you'd have to change it to negative 0.841. But in this case, both of our answers were fine. Then write the general solution. General solution, you take your answers between 0 and 2 pi, which we have right here. 2.30 and 3.98. And since we're in radians, add 2k pi. Where k is an integer. Part B. Part B has a cosecant. So you can get the cosecant by itself if we divide both sides by root 2, you would get negative 5 over root 2. And once you have cosecant by itself, then you would know what sine of x is. Because if cosecant is negative 5 over root 2, then sine of x is negative root 2 over 5. Notice the angle didn't change, but the ratio did. So again, we find our reference angle. This is a calculator question. By doing sine inverse of positive root 2 over 5. Notice in this question they're in degrees, so we have to go to our calculator and switch to degrees. Sine inverse of root 2 divided by 5. We get a reference angle of 16.4 degrees. What did it want us to the nearest degree, it says. So rounded to the nearest degree is 16 degrees. Where is sine negative? Sine is negative in quadrants 3 and quadrants 4. So I would go to my calculator. I could store this as x. In quadrant 3, it would be 180 plus x. In quadrant 4, it would be 360 minus x. So 196 and 344. And again, this is our solution from 0 degrees to 360 degrees, one time around the circle. What is the domain they ask us for in this one? We read our question now again. They have this domain from negative 180 to 180. So if you break it up from 0, 0 to 180 would be quadrant 1 and 2 positive. 0 to negative 180 would be quadrants 3 and 4, but negative. Are these answers in that solution? No. So we would have to say, it's not this one, it's not this one. What is coterminal with 196 as a negative angle? Negative 164 degrees. So you could just take 360 away from that. I mental math that. I use my reference angle though. So if you take away, since my reference angle is 16, if you figure out what quadrant 2 would be, which would be 164, it's going to be negative 164. Are you going to be really impressed with my mental math on this one then? Wow. Yeah. And so those are our solutions between negative 180 and 180. Now it says also write the general solution. Okay. I would take my initial answers from 0 to 360 but again, I think your textbook uses would use the negative ones that you just solved for. Either would be fine. The only difference in these ones is we used our calculator. So you can try questions 6 and 7 for practice.